I can't tell you the kind of pain you feel when you watch something like that. When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to your whole entire life, die begging for his mom. I'm tired. I'm tired of pain. Pain you feel when you watch something like that. When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to for your whole life, die begging for his mom. I'm here to ask you to make it stop. Stop the pain. Stop us from being tired. George called for help and he was ignored. Please listen to the call I'm making to you now, to the calls of our family and the calls ringing out the streets across the world. People of all backgrounds, genders, and races have come together to demand change. Honor them, honor George, and make the necessary changes that make law enforcement the solution and not the problem. Hold them accountable when they do something wrong. Teach them what it means to treat people with empathy and respect.
That was Philonise Floyd. He testified in front of Congress today, and just pain and agony over the killing of his brother, George Floyd, who was laid to rest yesterday. Joining us to talk about that, of course, Louis Daniel Favors is here, Afro State of Mind, and also activist, one of the lead organizers of the Women's March from 2017, Tamika Mallory. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, Karen.
Hey. And happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. Your birthday 2 days ago, you were out in them streets.
It was on Monday, and I worked all day long.
Tell us about where you've been since George Floyd's life was snuffed out, literally snuffed out on camera. What did you do next? And because I need us to understand the anatomy of activism.
So in the anatomy, it's important to also understand that we didn't just start with George Floyd in that particular time period. We actually were in Louisville, Kentucky, which we traveled there for Memorial Day because Breonna Taylor is an essential worker. And so we went there to honor her on Memorial Day with her family. We laid a wreath at her home, the place where she was murdered, where she took her final breath. And we had been deeply engaged in that. The next day we got up and we had a press conference and protest outside of City Hall. And then we left there, driving to Indianapolis to visit with another family where Mikkel Rose, you don't hear much about his story. And we're looking at ways to bring attention to the 3 police murders that took place in a 24-hour period in Indianapolis, which Sean Reed was one person, Mikkel Rose was another, and there was a woman who was ran over by a police car. She was pregnant, and her unborn baby were killed.
Jesus.
And so that happened, and we went there. That was some energy in Indianapolis, and then while we were on the way in the car, we heard about what happened to George Floyd, and we saw the video. And so we made a decision that we were going to get a few hours of sleep because we had our hotels to sleep in that night to prepare to go to the airport coming back to New York early the next morning. But when we heard that, George Floyd had been murdered, we decided that we were going to drive all night, which was 10 hours, down to Minneapolis. And we got on the road. So I think that context is important because we didn't just find out that George Floyd was murdered and then jump up and say we're going to go, which is fine for anyone who did, and we certainly have done that in the past. But this was actually a murder journey, not to mention that we just been helping from afar, because we never went to Georgia, to help with folks getting organized, donating resources, and doing all that we could to support the Ahmaud Arbery movement. Then, right before that, we were in New York City fighting with the mayor and the police commissioner about the way that Black people and brown people were being treated around COVID. Right. So, police officers were beating Black and brown folks up in the street and giving out masks to white people on the Lower West Side and the Lower East Side in parks. So you're dealing with all of that. And then you come to George Floyd. And I think what's important is that not only were we dealing with it as activists, the American public was coming along on the journey because it was all in the palm of your hand.
Right. Tamika, Mallory, Until Freedom is your organization. As you guys, when you say we, how many people travel with you? You were just saying off mic, you haven't eaten in several days, like you're out there, right? You're right. Right. You don't sleep, how does this work?
Well, I mean, you've got to be a little touched mentally and have a lot of courage and a good support system to decide that you're going to dedicate your life to fighting for Black folks. That's just the truth. Like, as a Black person, I ain't talking about our allies. That is, that you have a little mental touchness if you don't join the fight. But if you're in it every day and you have to take the abuse that goes along with the trauma, because our people are traumatized from everything that we've been through, from failed leadership, from just despair. And so when you show up and you're like, hey, let's do this, everybody's like, really? Like, let's do what? Like, and who are you? And why should we follow what you're telling us? Because the last 10 people that came here didn't come back. We could never allow, ourselves not to go back to Louisville, Kentucky, where we started with Breonna Taylor. And we finally had the opportunity today. We released a video that has been, thankfully, we've been collaborating with a number of celebrities under the leadership of Alicia Keys and Rhapsody, where we put out a video asking, do you know the story of Breonna Taylor? Because a lot of people don't really know the details. They know that the police killed a woman, she was in her home, it wasn't right, but they don't really understand the depth of incompetence and negligence and criminal activity that took place for this lady to be murdered and for Kenny Walker, her boyfriend, to go to jail for 3 weeks. And he said it felt like he was in jail for 3 months to have to be in there because he fired a warning shot, which is his right, as people came into his home, kicked in his door, broke open his door. They knocked, so people, we all know, because when we talk about no-knock warrant, not everyone is aware of what a no-knock warrant means. It doesn't mean that you didn't necessarily knock on the door. But I'm going to ask you, Karen, if somebody shows up at your house right now and they knock on the door and then you say, who is it? And they don't respond. And then all of a sudden, the door flies open. What are you going to do? You're going to feel that you're in danger. And we know that Kenny is not lying because the voice recording that that you hear him speaking to 911, to the police, he's saying somebody is here. I don't know what it is. No one calls the police on the police. If you know it's the police, you're not calling the police. Like, don't talk to us like we're stupid. So when we go there and we're finding out that all of these different details unraveling, we become righteously indignant as activists, right? As Black people in America, Black and brown folks in America, because our team is made up of different of people from different walks of life. So when you say, well, how does it work and what do? We have to be committed because we are as traumatized as everyone else that we have to continuously show up in these spaces where the conversation, it's not like a family reunion, although it is, because we're showing up in communities, and some of the same people are showing up in the same communities to help fight injustice. So we have built an unfortunate family that travels across this country trying to help bring attention to these cases. And as I was saying, we can't not go back. We have to. We had to circle back. We worked on George Floyd's case. We will continue to fight for convictions there. But Breonna Taylor, as a woman, her name cannot drift away from the media and drift away from our attention. So we went back. We released this video today. which there's so many celebrities engaged, Tracy Ellis Ross, MC Light, Cardi B, Lala Anthony, Gabrielle Union, as I said, Alicia Keys and Rhapsody, Monique Idlet. Like, there's so many women. Yandy Smith Harris, who you know very well. Jamila is also in the campaign. And we released these videos that allows different women from different walks of life, Jada Pinkett Smith, to ask the question, do you really know the story? And then it ends with me giving people action steps, things that they can do to help us get an arrest and a conviction.
You know, Tamika, thank you so much for just recounting all of that, because I think a lot of times our memories can be so short that we sometimes get stuck on the most recent hashtag name, right? And what I'm hearing as you're telling the story, how you started in one place, you drove to another place, you had a hotel that you were going to stay overnight in, but you decided to drive 10 hours to a third place. What I'm hearing is resistance infrastructure. And I'm commenting on that because I feel like it's important for people to recognize you don't just wake up one morning and decide you're going to travel across country, jump in a car. And maybe you can, but for many people who are involved in these movements, there has to be an existing structure that allows you to say, here's how we rent the car. Here's how we plot out what the action is going to look like. Here's how we have, right, but here's what the security measures are going to be. Here's the buddy system. Here's who's responsible for checking on whomever. And I think a lot of times we have glorified resistance efforts without understanding the amount of infrastructure that is required to develop them so that they are effective. And I know that you don't do this on your own, but can you speak a bit to some of the considerations you have to make as someone who's so visible in this space when it comes to the planning and the organizing and the execution that moves you from the passionate, righteous anger to the actions that are going to actually match up with the need in a way that's effective?
Well, first of all, we don't just move into a city without knowing that we're welcome. So that's the main thing. Like, we don't just get up and say we're going to go to Louisville and set up shop and start, organize it in someone else's city. We always make sure that we find the local individuals who we think have, are making the most impact or that need the most support, but have the influence. And we contact them and say, what do you need? How can we help? Here's the things that we're willing to do. Here's the things we're capable of doing. And here's what we've done that has worked in other places. And so there's conference calls and a lot that goes into that. We usually try to reach a family attorney, even if the family is not, sometimes families are like, it's nice to know you. Thanks for helping us. We appreciate it. But we don't need new folks contacting us, and that's okay. That rarely happens, but at times it has. And so we try to find the attorney because we want to make sure that our messaging is not in conflict with what the family wants and what the local movement is all about. Like, in other words, in Breonna Taylor's situation, we could have gone there and just say, fire the cops, arrest the cops. If you never talk about no-knock warrants, then we could be going back next week because there will be a loopy tail, so. We have to always be in line with the local movement. And then, just your regular life. You've got to get prepared to hit the road, not knowing what's going to happen. In Minneapolis, we were in the middle of tear gas, rubber bullets. One of my partners that I work with, he actually got tear gas really bad. It was a whole thing. Linda Sarsour, who I'm always with, she's one of the co-founders of Until Freedom and also of the Women's March on Washington, Muslim sister. She was standing next to a woman who got hit in the eye with a rubber bullet, and I was bleeding. And so, we were in the eye of it. So you're also preparing that I may not come home. And it was something, I can't even remember exactly what the last incident was, and not in this particular moment, but there was something else that we were protesting anyway, in a not too distant time period, where I remember being so rattled about the death threats that I was receiving and the energy that I felt that I called my son into my room And we sat down and worked again on my finances and, like, you know, if this happens, this is what you do. This is the bank account. This is everything you need to know. And he's kind of like, Mom, like, okay. And I'm like, no, it's not, Mom. This is really important. You have to know these things in order for you to, you know, in order for you to be prepared to take care of me. Now, since then, I changed all my information. So if anybody thinks they're going to try to torture my son to get the information, he doesn't know it because I lived. I made it. I lived. I survived.
Thank
it.
God.
But I'm just saying, even the personal thing, my mom had a stroke this year. She's not been feeling her best. She had a severe stroke that paralyzed a dancer who runs dance classes. And we've been taking care of her as a family. Guess what? I've been on the road for the last 3 weeks. So it's a lot that goes into it personally. It's a lot that goes into it where you have to make sure that what you're doing is going to actually move the needle. Because that's, you know, and that's not always easy. Sometimes you don't know what the end result will be, but you have no choice in that moment but to do something because you can't allow time to go by while you wait to figure out the master plan.